Like, you look around, you walk down the street in Austin, you see skyscrapers and shit clouding your vision. There's all kinds of pollution and all that. And you're like, well, this kind of sucks. But if you interrogate any individual person in that whole causal chain, and you're like, why are you doing what you're doing? Well, locally, they're like, oh, this makes tons of sense. It's because I do the thing that gets me paid so that I can live a happier life and so on. And yet in the aggregate, not now necessarily, but as you keep going, it just forces us like compulsively to keep giving rise to these more and more powerful systems, and in a way that's potentially deeply disempowering.
That's the race, right? Like that's like,
yeah.
It comes back to the idea that an AI company, I maybe don't want to be potentially driving towards a cliff, but I don't have the agency to like steer. So, yeah.
But I mean, everything's fine apart from that.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
It's such a terrifying prognosis.
There are, again, we wrote a 280-page document about like, okay, and here's what we can do about it.
I can't believe you didn't read the 200.
I started reading it, but I passed out. Does any of these, or do any of these safety steps that you guys want to implement, do they inhibit progress?
They're definitely, you create, anytime you have regulation, you're going to create friction to some extent. It's kind of inevitable. One of the key center pieces of the approach that we outline is you need the flexibility to move up and move down as you notice the risks appearing or not appearing. So one of the key things here is like you need to cover the worst case scenarios, because the worst case scenarios, they could potentially be catastrophic. So those got to be covered. But at the same time, you can't completely close off the possibility of the happy path. Like we can't lose sight of the fact that all this shit is going down or whatever. We could be completely wrong about the outcome. It could turn out that for all we know, it's a lot easier to control these systems at this scale than we imagined. It could turn out that it is like you get maybe some kind of ethical impulse gets embedded in the system naturally. For all we know, that might happen. And it's really important to at least have your regulatory system allow for that possibility. Because otherwise, you're foreclosing the possibility of what might be the best future that you could possibly imagine for everybody.
I got to imagine that the military, if they had hindsight, if they were looking at this, they said, we should have got on board a long time ago and kept this in-house and kept it squirreled away, it wasn't publicly being discussed and you didn't have open AI, you didn't have all these people. Like if they could have gotten on it in 2015.
So this is actually deeply tied to how the economics of Silicon Valley work. AI is not a special case of this, right? You have a lot of cases where technology just takes everybody by surprise. And it's because when you go into Silicon Valley, it's all about people placing these outsized bets on what seem like tail events, like things that are very unlikely to happen. But with at first a small investment and increasingly, growing investment as the thing gets proved out more and more very rapidly, you can have a solution that seems like complete insanity that just works. And this is definitely what happened in the case of AI. So 2012, we did not have this whole picture of an artificial brain with artificial neurons, this whole thing that's been going on. That's it's 12 years that's been going on. That was really kind of shown to work for the first time, roughly in 2012. Ever since then, it's just been people kind of you can trace out the genealogy of the very first researchers, and you can basically account for where they all are now.
You know what's crazy is if that's 2012, that's the end date of the Mayan calendar. That's the thing that everybody said was going to be the end of the world. That was the thing that Terence McKenna banked on. It was December 21st, 2012. Because this was this goofy conspiracy theory, but it was based on the long count of the Mayan calendar where they surmised that this is going to be the end of civilization.
Just the beginning of the end, Joe.
But what if if it is 2012, how wacky would it be